I'm going to hand over to you because I'd love to hear from you a little bit of background about yourself and what your business is, please.
Sure. My name's Kresse. I'm the co-founder of Aalverson Cycle, and essentially we do three things. We rescue materials that would otherwise go to landfill, we transform them into beautiful products, and then we donate 50% of our profits to charities related to the waste.
I've started a group coaching for women, a leadership program, and we called it Ikigai. It's about what you're good at, the Japanese concept, what you're good at, what you're passionate about, what the earth needs, and what you can get paid for. And right in the center of it, at the heart of it, you've got your purpose. And I think in everything that you do, your sense of purpose comes across so strongly. Tell me a little bit about that.
I think all of that came really from my maternal grandmother. She was one of these people that was just had so much more energy than anyone you could possibly imagine. And she was overcommitted to almost every cause that she was associated with, but she always over delivered. You know, you'd be driving down the road and she would spot some Saskatoon bushes, which is a small wild blueberry. And you'd pull over and you'd pick 3 buckets full, and then you'd go home and you'd make 42 pies. And, you know, there was this non-stop frenetic activity, and all of it was sort of for the greater good. And I remember once when I was, you know, a very impressionable young teenager, she said to me, if you're capable, you're responsible. And if I think about what Elvis and I do, you know, it's really interesting, I suppose. We've been together for about 15 years. He's very much the love of my life, and we have such a good time together. We could just get in a canoe and traverse some rivers, but it's not enough for us to just be responsible for our own happiness. So I think, you know, for me, Ikigai is really what are you capable of doing? Well, if you are capable, you're responsible. And it has to be about more than just you and more than just your family. It has to be about other people's grandchildren and making the world better. And that's what gets us up in the morning and what keeps us going.
So your background, and you've been in the UK for 15 years?
Yeah, just 16 now, yeah.
But when you arrived here, I mean, it sounded like you went straight to the landfill site and just hung out there for a while. Tell me about that.
Well, the first place I went was Battersea Waste Transfer Station, and because we were living in Brixton, between Brixton and Clapham North. I came here because Elvis is British, and I was running an environmental startup at the time, but I was also kind of on the hunt for, you know, new opportunities, something that would be related to where I saw my future, which was definitely in the UK. And I find waste fascinating and appalling in equal measure. So I don't understand why we have it, but when we've got it, I want to know what it is. You know, if I was a doctor, I suppose I would be like a gastroenterologist or something, because I like the guts of things. I like the way things really, really function. You know, I want to go to the power plant. I want to go to the sewage treatment plant. I want to understand how society functions or fails. And you can really see a lot about our failure if you go to a landfill site, because effectively that's just defeat. That's a failure of creativity, and it's just horrendous that we've decided that it's acceptable to produce things which have byproducts that we no longer want.
In those 15 years since you were there, have they improved at all? And is any sorting or recycling done now?
So when I first came, we were sending about 100 million tons of waste to landfill in the UK. Now it's about 40 million. So we've improved by a factor of 60 million tons. And that 60 million tons some of it has gone to recycling, some of it's gone to incineration, waste to energy incineration. Some of it has just been eliminated because companies who were producing it have found ways of doing what they want to do with less collateral damage, because that collateral damage was expensive. So they've been on a cost reduction mission. But yes, we have been getting better, but are we anywhere near good enough? No, because 40 million tons is still appalling. I mean,
so when Aalverson Cycle started, and listening to all the interviews that you've done, it comes across very much as you were the big picture, you're the ideas person. So here's the idea. I want to make something out of fire hose. I want to repurpose fire hose. Elvis, what are you going to do? And Elvis goes off and learns to sew. Learns to code to build the website. Here's some leather scraps, Elvis. What are we going to do with these as well? So what was your role as you started? Because for the first 8 years. It
I
was just
feed
the
him.
two of you.
Actually, Elvis, we're a social enterprise, and Elvis would always say that I'm the social and he's the enterprise. um, no, it's a really good dynamic, because if you can divide up a business along those lines. Elvis tends to do the design work and the logistics and making sure that everything that we manufacture is wonderful. And he also looks after, finances and stuff like that. But I do all the business development and working with press and doing interviews and coming up with new concepts and ideas and pushing the business to the next level and to the next level and to the next level. Because for me, in a lot of the fashion sector, people innovate around seasons, and it's not really even innovation or creative. It's like, oh, we're going to do bell bottoms again, or we're going to do plaid again, or something like that. Whereas we only want to bring out something new if it involves real innovation, like we're coming up with something pretty spectacular, or another way to solve another waste problem. And I'm always hunting those down and giving him the framework in which to do that. And that's where he shines, is at execution. So yeah, ideas and execution, I suppose.
I know, but and the values as well, though, because I think your values just shine through. And I think if you look at any successful business, that they would be the absolute foundations. So just share your values.
Well, our values are actually, something that we wouldn't have necessarily put this onto paper when we started, but we definitely have now. We make business decisions based on whether or not it's going to be good for other people's grandchildren. You've got money as a baseline. The business has to make money in order to have the permission to stay open, but that's not why you do it. Why you do it is this going to make the world better for other people's grandchildren? If yes, go for it. If not, don't do it. So that's a huge value for us. The other value, I suppose, is that we are we're innovating in an industry that has structurally failed. It's exploitative, and it's extractive. The pace, the processes, the materials, they are destroying the environment, and they are, treating the human beings that make up the supply chain really like garbage, particularly if you look at what's happening with lots of companies that are not paying for orders that were already produced on their behalf. I mean, let's talk about the most appalling behavior you can possibly happen, right? So we wanted to create a business that structurally succeeded, that was sound. And we've done that. And the only way for me to be able to tell an entire industry off is to do it better. And we're doing it better. And I think that was the reason to have an enterprise to begin with, is so that I can say with some degree of confidence, no, you shouldn't do it that way, because I know for a fact there's a better way that it can be done. We don't have to be a consultant and suggest that something else might be possible. We can prove hands down that something else is possible because we've done it, we're doing it.
I thought it was very powerful that you said you're describing the creative sector and creative designers, and saying actually that nobody should call them that, because they're destroyers and they're destructive in terms of the way that they're behaving. I thought that was a very powerful statement. It strikes me that you've been ahead of the curve forever. And I loved one of the stories about making biodegradable packaging and bringing it to the UK, but it biodegraded on the way over. So it was so effective. So
you live and you learn, and you sometimes work out that you're in an industry that's way too ahead of its time, and we were.
But I think being ahead of the curve, and I've watched the workshop tour, and all the machinery though is very. It feels like an older way of doing things. It feels like it's very artisan. Would that be right to say?
That's absolutely right. And we always, we've always made do with the equipment that was available, whether that equipment was purpose designed or not. So if you want to start a leather goods business in the UK, there is equipment that's available, because the leather goods industry has largely collapsed here. So we went up to, I think, Northamptonshire and found warehouses filled with equipment that if you buy it new, it costs a fortune. If you buy it used and keep it in good repair, it'll stick with you. So yeah, we use old techniques, but we use available techniques. And I think there's a lot of innovation that can be done with what we have. it doesn't have to all be about a brand new technology that never existed before and is going to cost millions of pounds and decades of R&D. We have to save the environment in 10 years. So let's work with what we've got.
But, and yet your washing machine is very state of the art. And how did you get them to come up with the Elvis and Kresse cycle? How?
Well, from the beginning, I mean, we started cleaning fire hose in the bathtub, and then we were cleaning it with a big heavy broom, and we were tough. It was all done outside, and it was hard work, and we could only clean hose in the summertime because it had to dry, and that was the only time it was warm enough. And we always knew we needed a better way of doing it, but we had tried all of the equipment, and we tried a lot of different kinds of equipment. And eventually, after a lot of talking with Electrolux, we just decided now, it's time to work together and come up with a cycle that works. And of course, they named that after us because nobody else needs a washing machine that does what we do. Yeah,
amazing. I mean, I think with COVID-19. The adoption of technology has been accelerated for everybody, and everybody's working from home, and Microsoft Teams is advertised on national primetime TV now, and everybody's looking at actually what innovations they're going to make to their business subsequent to this. What impact will it, if any, have on your business that is so artisan, and that you have repurposed all those machinery?
Well, I suppose what's really exciting is that we are embarking on a new project right now, which is we're calling it Project Solar Forge. And essentially, the genesis of this project is slightly long and involved, but I'll try and do a quick overview. We always wanted to make our own hardware. So this is belt buckles and rivets and D-rings and things like that. But we can't do that unless we can do it in an Elvis and Kresse way, which means not using fossil fuels and solving an environmental problem at the same time. In the UK, we litter into our public spaces every year 16 million aluminum cans. That's just litter. But 2 billion aluminum cans go in the wrong bin, which means they never get recycled. And aluminum is one of these beautiful materials that is 95% more efficient to use as a recycled material than as a virgin material. So we really have to cherish it. We shouldn't be mining it anymore. There's enough in circulation. We should be loving it. So we wanted to use this aluminum. Now, you can't get a 3D metal printer to take an aluminum can and turn it into a belt buckle. Everybody I talk to, and this is what I also love about being in the UK, there's experts on everything, everywhere, and you can just call them up because you can read their papers and call their university, and they're happy to talk to you. But a 3D metal printer that's metal to metal, everyone was telling me it's 10 years away. It's going to be £300,000 when it's ready. So this is not going to solve the global problem of recycling because nobody else is going to be able to afford this machine. So we got together with a team from Queen Mary University. We set this challenge, and it's, can we open source design a micro solar powered forge that can be built anywhere in the world for $500, and it has to be safe. And that's the project that we're embarking on now. We're literally hiring a project manager tomorrow, and we're doing this in the open. We're working with universities from all over the world. Anybody can participate, and most importantly, anybody can use the final design or the design at any point as a jumping off point, which means they can use it to recycle plastic, they can use it to create distributed heating systems, they can use it to purify water or to cook food. If we get this right, we can have a huge impact on renewable heat, and yet we're trying to make a belt buckle. So what I love about the pandemic is because there's lots of brilliant people who are going to be trapped at home for a while and are going to be working from home and who are now used to this virtual environment. This is going to help us with our virtual collaboration plans enormously. People weren't ready for this before. They weren't ready for Microsoft Teams before. Now they're like, oh, I've been Zooming all day.
But you said for that postdoc, that's what you're talking about, for the postdoc.
Yeah, MacGyver. Yeah.
You've had applications from all over the world for that position, and you've gone through the recruitment process and chosen someone.
We've narrowed it down to 4. We've done all of that virtually. We've narrowed it down to 4 virtually. We're having the interview like this tomorrow, and we will hire someone at the end of that final interview. Yeah, all online.
Amazing.
Because apparently Bill Gates is invested in something like this, but he's put like 20 million in it. And I was just like, we got to beat them.
Yeah,
And ours is going to be free, no patents, everyone can have it.
They are just starting to do it. That, you know, open sources now is de rigueur.
Yeah.
And again, Elvis and Kresse leading the way. Love that.
Yeah.
It's great to see that you're still pushing on, but I know that you've got 2 members of the workshop of your team. It's still in the workshop. And what's the impact on the rest of the team? Are they able to work from home, or are they furloughed, or where are you up to?
So we've tried, as you can imagine, all kinds of interesting things. We have, you know, our sewing machines take a couple people to move around. We've had sewing machines in people's houses. So we have some people working from home. We have risk assessed the workshop and tried to come up with ways of bringing more and more people back in a way where social distancing is possible. So, you know, we're reacting to it every single day, and we're using all of the evidence that everybody else has access to make sure that everybody's safe, but also to stay productive, because demand for what we do is still incredibly high.
What percentage of your business is online versus retail?
It's about 70%.
Online.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So actually that's still a benefit, because you can still,
yeah.
You know,
Yeah, we are very happy with the choice we made to have a pure online strategy.
People have wanted to come, have sought you out proactively and wanted to come and work with you. For example, Burberry. But just tell me a little bit about that, because I think that's a really wonderful situation to be in as well.
Yeah, I mean, we were aware of the leather problem since about 2010. We came up with our solution, and I was giving a presentation about, you know, saying, look, this leather problem, it's huge, it's global, it's at least 800,000 tons a year, and that's what is being reported. So, you know, it kind of behooves the industry to do something about it. And Elvis and I have come up with this solution, and it's circular and it's ahead of its time. And, you know, it has enormous potential to unlock and unleash value. And there were some people from Burberry at that presentation, and they said, well, can you work with us? And it took us like the better part of 3 years to come up with a way to work together to scale our concept and to really try and scale it in a way to have a bigger and more profound impact on not just their leather waste, but the industry's leather waste. And we're, you know, a couple of years into that partnership, and it's working, and it's wonderful. And but it's also difficult, because it's you know, Elvis and I are quick and nimble and fast, and we just think, gosh, change can happen tomorrow, so let's do it tomorrow. Let's not talk about doing it several years from now. Come on. But yeah, it's been interesting. And I think if we want to have a truly circular economy, if we want to fast forward these things, then we've got to get good at mass collaboration, and we've got to also get good at you know, combining nimble startup innovators with big business that have the throughput of material. You know, we have to find ways of making that work. And yeah, I hope that that's the wider legacy of that partnership.
I hope so too. And there's, you know, there's lots of talk about that, and I hope that we don't, you know, revert back to our old ways after that. What do you miss, you know, during, obviously we're all in lockdown at the moment, what I heard you talk about missing hugs, which is funny, because I don't know if the extroverts, I would say I'm an extrovert as well, that's the physical contact of, you know, not seeing my friends and family is definitely what I miss. What are you missing? It is
the friends and family. I mean, we've been able to adapt by having sort of, you know, Zoom parties, and you know, it was a friend's 50th on the weekend, and we all Zoomed together instead. But it was really odd that, you know, sort of at the end, you close the laptop and the atmosphere is over. And it's like, oh, this is not you know, this is not really how these things usually go. But yeah, of course I miss hugging people. And I think the anxiety that I have in particular is that I have, you know, I'm Canadian, my parents are far away, and it's the idea of like, well, when will we be able to see them again? Yeah, because I can imagine things opening up a little bit in the UK and being able to see people here, but I don't know about when we're going to be allowed into British Columbia. And
what are you doing for your team? Are you doing any social stuff for the team to sort of keep them together?
Oh yeah, there's a WhatsApp group, and there's a lot of jokes, and there's a lot of funny images, and we're doing constant updates about what's happening here, you know, what's going on with orders, how we're managing to keep producing. But yeah, it's, we are a species that enjoys contact, and we'll find a way. And if right now that way is virtual, then that way is virtual. I do actually think that this should help us in our transition with climate change, because we should have realized over the course of this period that we don't always need to go to meetings. A lot of it can be done in this way. Some of it still, I think some things still have to be done in person, but you know, these meetings work pretty well.
A cheeky question I wanted to ask you was, you were on the One Show a while back, with Cara Delevingne and Orlando Bloom, and they both went away with belts, but Orlando Bloom went away with your belt.
Well, technically Elvis's belt, because I had borrowed Elvis's belt. So I'd borrowed one of Elvis's belts and I was wearing that. And actually what I discovered when, because he was like, do you have a belt for me? And I was like, yeah, why don't you have Elvis's? And he's like, are you sure? I was like, why not? And then I discovered afterwards that that I was wearing trousers that are actually quite loose. So the whole way back to Kent, I was holding up my trousers.
Globally, we've witnessed some really effective leadership, often from female heads of state over the past few weeks during this pandemic. Who do you admire? Who stands out for you, and why?
Well, you know, it's tough because I'm getting sort of, I'll reel off you know, my grandmother, who's sadly no longer with us, obviously, but I love people who are effective communicators. You've got someone like Kate Raworth, who's put a new economic paradigm into language that we can all access. Donut Economics is an absolute must read. Everyone should read it. Then you've got Catherine Hayhoe, who's an amazing climate scientist, and she's able to break down very, very complicated issues related to climate change into completely understandable, you know, everyday science that's compelling for people. So those are two communicators I really admire. And then you have, you know, amazing teenage campaigners like Kresse, who are just, you know, quite fiercely putting their foot down and saying, nope, not doing it, not having it. It's got to happen another way. It's got to be another way. And that ferocity and commitment has given a lot of people permission, I think, to rethink where they're at and at any age. So I have a lot of admiration there. I mean, my sister lives in New Zealand, so they're obviously having a fantastic time with their prime minister, because, you know, I think she's a great communicator. She's very honest. She's very straightforward. When she's confused about something, she says she's confused about it. She doesn't bluster through and make up ridiculous, you know, comparisons that don't apply. And she's not trying to recreate a world, you know, from the past. She's trying to build one with the people around her, you know, according to some level of consensus. Is truly wonderful.
Perhaps people are being a bit more honest about their fears and their concerns, and that is very compelling.
Yeah, and it's quite easy to be honest. You know, I'm mentoring someone who is just starting her university degree now, and she's like, so just tell me, like, you know, your career plan, and did you, like, what was your map, and what were the steps that you took? I was like, I had no plan. I was like, anyone who pretends to have a plan, I mean, you know, I always did the thing that appealed to me most at the time, or the thing that I thought was the most challenging. And if something became boring, or it wasn't challenging, or wasn't interesting, or didn't have any potential to be good for anyone else, then I found a way to do something else. So there was never a plan. And she was laughing after that. She's like, oh, I feel so relieved. She's like, because I don't really have a plan either. And I was like, you haven't even been to university yet. You don't need a plan.
And I know that you won the Cartier Women's Award.
Yeah.
And I've always found I always wanted to have the Veuve Clicquot Awards in Aberdeen for women. The Aberdeen's answer to the Veuve Clicquot Awards, because we don't really have anything like that up here that celebrates women's achievements. But I see that another BCorp organisation is Symington, who produce wines from Douro and Altano wines, and I love Portugal. My dad used to live in Portugal, so I thought, brilliant, I could do that. I could do a BCorp.
You could. That's how we do all of our purchasing now. You know, we partner with other B Corps and purchase from other B Corps. There's, you know, there's Toast Ale, there's Chateau Maris, there's you know, from a booze perspective, you can get around.
Yeah.
But the most important thing about the B Corp movement that for Elvis and I is that, you know, it requires the one fundamental change that if we put into the Companies Act tomorrow would completely change the world, and that is that we have to change the constitution of our business as a B Corp to say that the shareholder is not king. The shareholder is not more important than people or planet. That's totally rational. I can't find anybody who wants to argue the opposite.
Yeah.
You know, that's a well-adjusted human being.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe someone like Trump would, but we all know he's not a well-adjusted human being, right? So
Yeah.
we have this idea that the shareholder, you know, is important. They've invested some money into it, but you cannot maximize shareholder gain at the expense of the environment or its people. It's a rational way of running a business, and it's codified in every single B Corp. You've changed the constitution of your business. You've made that the law that governs how you behave, and that's why we love it. It's a celebratory community of wonderful, like-minded business that has taken this kind of approach very seriously.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant, and again, I think it's a message for our times in that is definitely should be what everybody's focusing on at the moment. So I think on that very positive note, I'd just like to say thank you so much for giving me your time this afternoon. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.